Hi everybody, Rachel here from RachelTheStamper.com, and today I want to thank you for joining me as part of the Stampin' Friends blog hop. We're going to be making this box, which this is from, apologize, I put this on the side, the Perfect Parcel Die. So this has lots of extra pieces. You can die cut a floral piece into the side of this if you wanted to. It also has some pieces that you could use just for die cutting sentiments. It's another good one. There's one for a tag if you wanted to. You could even use these little pieces to cut little holes in the side of your box if you want to make it a little bit more fancy. But today I'm just going to be showing you how to make multiple size dies or multiple size boxes out of the same die. So you can see this here. This was made with the exact same die. And I have one other one I did some time ago. So this bottom ones are all the same. This is the actual full size die. So if you use the entire die, you do have to cut this twice. You'll put it together, but you can also make them different sizes. So you can see this one's a little bit bigger, this one's a little bit smaller. So I'm going to show you how to make a smaller die today. So we're going to just use this. I actually also have another version cut for you. This is done in Calypso Coral, and I'm going to show you something else afterwards, but I want to show you how to do the die cutting first. So what you're going to do is you're going to need your magnetic platform if you're still using your Big Shot machine, if you still have that, or you could use whichever one you have. And what you're going to do is you're going to line your die up to the very end, and I kind of try to go to the corner just so I'm using as much paper as possible. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to do this as a partial die cut. Okay, so I'm only going to cut this part from here back because we're going to make this smaller, otherwise we would cut in the entire thing. So I'm going to go ahead and line this up. Let me move these over so I can bring my die cutting machine in. So I'm going to line this up, and I kind of just picked about a halfway point. It's about 2.5 inches, and I'm going to cut right like this. Okay, so let me bring in my die cut machine. And what you're going to do is I always feed the part that's going to be the partial die cut in because I feel like it works a little better that way. So I'm going to put this in, and remember you're going to have to do this twice because you need 2 of these to make the box. So I'm going to put that, and that cracking and popping is normal. Then, I apologize, the camera moved a little bit. Then what I'm going to do is we're going to slide this back. So and what I did was, I should have mentioned this ahead of time. I marked from the end 2.5 inches because that's how I wanted my box to be. So that's 2.5 inches there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this fold part right back to the 2.5 inch mark. And I'm going to also make sure that my grooves line up right where the grooves are for this box. So they will slide kind of right in there. I'm going to slide it right to the edge. So I'm going to move this here. And then I'm only going to die cut from here back. Okay, so I'm going to slide this out again, slide in my plate for the partial, and do this right here. And we're going to do the same thing again, and I will show you because I will have to measure it out for the other piece. Okay, so this goes back through. So then you have your smaller box. So this one is actually probably even, yep, it's even a little bit smaller than the one I made earlier. Okay, so there's one. So I'm going to show you how to do this again. Then you could use the rest of this for whatever else you wanted to use for scraps or whatever. Okay, so again, I have another half sheet. So I'm going to show you this one fully from the beginning. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to measure from the end. I just have my ruler at 2.5 inches. And I'm just putting a little pencil mark, and then when you're finished, if you want, you can go ahead and erase this. And I'm going to try my best to line it up. So I have my pencil mark, so I'm going to line this up at the end. So I have it lined up to the very edge of my paper. I'm going to put my purple tape down, and this time I'm only going to die cut this part. So it's partially die cutting just the back end, okay? So let me bring this in again. And again, the part that you want to cut, I always try to feed that part in. I'm going to slide in my plate, and I'm going to go ahead, and you could move this down further if you wanted to. I'm going to cut this. Okay, then I'm going to slide this back out, lift up my die, and I'm going to do my very best to line this cut mark right here up with this pencil mark that we created, okay? So I'm going to fit that in the grooves and That looks pretty good. I'm just going to tape it in place. And then I'm going to slide this down. Same thing again, I'm sliding in my second plate and I'm going to run this through and hopefully it should go correctly. So let's see if we got it. It does take a little practice, but actually those are almost nearly perfect. So I'll probably trim off just a teeny bit of the flap here, even though it should line up virtually the same because it's really just the flap. But we could trim off just a little bit. It does take a little practice to get this going, but after you do a couple, it's pretty simple. Pull this off, put this into my paper pile. Now I am going to keep my die cutting machine handy, and I'll tell you why, because I want to show you one other thing that you can do, and I'm going to show you this ahead of time because then I'm going to move my die cutter out of the way and we'll finish up our little box. So I did this already, but I wanted to show you. For this one, I actually ran it through with the spider web, the cobweb embossing folder, but there's one important step. You really want to make sure that you have folded all of your score lines, because if not, it is nearly impossible once you emboss them to find out where they are. Okay, so make sure you folded them really, really well. So what I'm going to do is grab my folder. So this is a 3D folder. So once we have the new die cutting machine, everything should work just fine with this. But if you still have the old one, you're going to want to use your old base and your blue plate. And I'm just going to feed this in and crank it through. And then you'll have a really cool embossed box. So this is why it's really important. You can see, as hard as those score lines are to see even on this, it really would be difficult if you didn't enforce them ahead of time. Okay, so there's that. And I'm going to show you one other way, if you don't want to do it that way, that you can decorate it. Okay, so lastly, if you didn't feel like doing that, I thought another cool way would be to use the festive corners. And I am going to grab a piece of scrap. You can see it's a very well scrapped scrap. I'm going to grab a block. And I'm really not necessarily going for the square line on this. I just really want the web. So I'm going to take my Memento ink and just ink up the web and kind of stamp it a couple different directions. You could do this with any of the dies. It doesn't necessarily have to be the web. And I'm going to go ahead and add, just for cutesy's sakes, I'm going to add one of the cobweb or the spiders. I'll add those around. So these will kind of be hanging in off of the web in different directions. I am going to try to keep all the spiders vertical though. That way they're hanging properly. There we go. So a couple of them might be covered up, but so there's that part. Again, that was just Memento ink. So now the only thing you have to do, and you have to do these for both of these. One other thing you could do, just while I'm thinking of it, if you wanted to, you can even add black ink before you ran this through, and then it would transfer ink onto here as well. So pretty simple. So I'm going to show you how to fold this one, and then I'll show you how to put the other one together. But you're going to just take your score lines and you're going to fold them all, and you really want to make sure you enforce these. Now this one's going to be a little bit weird because of the tab, so I'm just going to fold this one piece down. It's going to end up being glued, so it's not really terrifically huge big deal, but I am going to go back with my bone folder because you really want to make sure that these are all nicely creased up here. And then this is an important one. So these are the ones where the box is going to close. And what I usually do is fold those and kind of go in and press it. Make sure you pop the hole. Same for this one. You could even, if you wanted to, sponge this. If you wanted it to be a little bit darker, you could sponge it with a black sponge or basic gray. Just do this a little bit. And the side tabs. Okay, so totally overestimated here and put him where there's a spider, so you're not going to see him at all because we have to put adhesive. So you're going to put adhesive on all your little side tabs. Now this is especially important when you cut the box down smaller than it's intended. If you do it from the larger size, it's not really quite as big of a deal. And I'm going to put a little bit, I'm trying to think, let me look at this real quick when I put this together. No, we don't need it on that little flap. So we're going to put it there, and then I'm going to put a little bit right here. Not a whole lot. Oops. And I put that down there. I guess that one has it, and that one has it. Okay. So basically, what we're going to do now, oops, I forgot this one. No, I forgot one. I'm going to put it on both side tabs. All right, so you're going to peel off your tabs. Now, the tear and tape is a teeny bit wide, so if you have a smaller tape, you could absolutely use that. You definitely want to use something that has a very good adhesion. So if you were going to use the Stampin' Seal, I would use the Stampin' Seal Plus, not the Stampin' Seal. You could use liquid glue, just keep in mind you're going to have to hold it. So you have two pieces that are exactly the same. So you're going to take this piece and you're going to line it up here on the edge. And you absolutely could, if you wanted to, wait it until you have this put together before you stamp this, so your cobwebs kind of follow the design, but it's no big deal. And we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to fold this over. And at this point, this is when you want to make sure it lines up. So you might have to just rescore this now that you have it closed, only to make sure that it's square, since this one was just a hair off. But otherwise, these are going to go out. I always do these the opposite way than what they really go. I'm just going to give these a fold so we know. Okay. And then what you're going to do with this, so basically what this does is it just goes in, and these two little tabs on the big one will kind of stick together. But because of the way they're cut, what I usually do is, and I'm going to show you, I usually just put some adhesive on the bottom here. So I have that little tab there because it sticks out. And I'm going to put a little bit right down the end here, and then the same thing on this side. Right there. Okay. All right, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to pull all of the release paper off. And then we're going to just fold the two end flaps in and kind of lay them over, one over the other. And then what I usually do is make sure it looks okay. Just gently push. I want to make sure this lines up okay. Yeah. So before you fully press, in case you need to fix, then I'll just stick it with my bone folder. Put it over, and then you're just going to pop these guys into the thing, and it will hold your tree closed. Okay, so if you wanted to, I'm just going to grab my memento. You could even take the edge and sponge just the edges. I'm going to even pop this open and just do here. Just so it kind of sticks out a little bit. So there's that one. Okay, so, oops, hold on, I put this one in. Got a little excited. Just want to make sure your flaps, one is the top. It doesn't make a difference which ones. You just have to pick one to be the top. So then you'll have these boxes. So again, they open the same. So they can layer together. You could tie these together with some string, really cute. So I'm going to show you the other one, and this is the one that I embossed both sides. Again, this one was done. So since this is a little bit bright. I'm going to go ahead and sponge the edge of this just a little bit. This was Calypso Coral. So kind of just putting it in like a couple spots, not really the whole thing. And then we'll do the edges. So you can kind of see where the flaps are to open it, as well as the edges. Okay. I'm going to peel this off. Now this one just so happened that it lined up like perfectly when I cut this. I must have just done a really good job last night. There's one. Same thing again. I'm going to peel. And it kind of depends with your little lower flap in pieces here. It really kind of just depends on how big your box is, because they most likely will line up so they fold in, and I'll show you what I mean. They fold kind of like this. So they kind of go together, and that way you only have to put these down. But if for some reason yours don't, you can always just add a little bit of adhesive. It's not going to hurt it. Just going to pull this piece off. I'm going to fold that in so it doesn't get stuck. Let's see what this looks like. So we have just adhesive on these two little triangles here. So if that doesn't feel like it's enough adhesive, you can always put it on the inside as well. But you know, it's not like you're carrying glass dishes in this or something. Okay, so then the only other thing you're going to do is you want to make sure you have your things folding out for both of these. And just press this in and it pops right in that little hole. There and there. There you go. So now this is actually 3 different sizes of box. I know it's a little bit hard to see because you're not looking at it straight on, but then what you can do is fill these with whatever treat you want. And I will tell you one more time, and I must have put it away. Where is it? Oh my gosh. Oh, here it is. This ribbon is probably one of the most awesome ribbons. So this is a Halloween ribbon. It's metallic mesh. So what you could do is you can tie these up just like so, and you could go all the way around if you wanted to, or you could just tie them straight like this. And that way, sometimes, you know, when you tie something, people they don't want to take it apart because they think it looks so pretty. So if you make it so it's not tied both directions, maybe it'd be a little bit more likely that they would open it. So we'll just make a little bow, just like so. Pull this in just a little, and you could fill this with all sorts of little Halloween treats. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and I do hope that I made it simple the way I was explaining it. So basically you can make, this is the base size. You can even make it longer if you wanted to, but you have your base size of your box, which is the bottom, and then you can go up or down just by moving it over one way or the other. Only thing you're going to want to make sure is that you kind of decide how far from the end you want. So again, this one here was about 2.5 inches. I think this one was about 3 inches when I eyeballed it. But what you're going to do is just measure over from the end and then move your middle part of your die cut over. So you're going to move this part over to wherever it measured. So for some reason, just to explain, if you wanted to put this at 4 inches from the end, what you'll do is you'll do your first die cut and then you're going to measure over 4 and put your cut piece there to make it shorter or longer, depending on which way it is you want to do. But I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Make sure that you go through the rest of the blog hop. There's lots of ideas for well wishes, or kind of like a thinking of you, wishing you well blog hop is what this is part of today. But please make sure you hop all the way through. There are some very talented ladies, and they usually have brilliant ideas. If you'd like to get any of these supplies and more, you can shop in my online store 24/7, which is reachthestamper.stampinup.net. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I look forward to talking to you again real soon. Bye-bye.